I worked 60-hour work weeks when I first learned breath work. Not exaggerating, not lying. Minimum 12-hour days with 45 to an hour long commute there and back. On my feet most of the day. I worked in the film industry, so it's just really long days in a warehouse, barely getting any sun, unless we were on set somewhere. But for the most part, not really getting much vitamin D. And really exhausted, needless to say, by the time I got home or by the time it was Saturday morning. You know, I was just like, I don't feel like doing anything. Anybody who's worked in any of the industries, you know that you just don't really have a life for a little bit. But super grateful for that opportunity and experience because that contrast, for one, has allowed me to appreciate where I am now wholeheartedly. But it also was a challenge to see how dedicated and committed I was to changing my reality, to shifting my reality. I wasn't necessarily happy in that space. I won't say that I was unhappy or it was miserable, but deep down, I've always known since graduating college that being my own boss is something I wanted to be. Driving to the same place every single day for 5 days out of the week just seemed like insanity to me. Like that, the fact that that is normal is just like nothing about that seems sane, in my opinion. By all means, though, I don't say that to bash anybody that is totally comfortable in their 9 to 5 and is thriving in their corporate job. Like, entrepreneurship is not for everybody at all. It is 24 hours work, okay? 9 to 5, sometimes I'm like, wow, that honestly sounds great right about now. You get to clock out. You have a time where you can compartmentalize and live your life. Wow, I don't know anything about that. So I say all that to say that I was working like crazy and still had my YouTube channel. So it wasn't like I didn't have any of this stuff. I had CBUD still going on. I don't think I had my official LLC yet though or anything, but I was still making YouTube videos and blogging on the weekends, and making content was still a thing I was doing while also working 60-hour weeks, while also just trying to implement breathwork into my life. But yeah, I want to say first, get your definition of commitment down, get what your ideal scenario of commitment and what that looks like for you. And then maybe you create that ideal scenario, right? But then under that, create like this week, ideally, what would feel good? What would by the end of the week you'd be like, you know what? I did 10 minutes of breath work every day this week. Cool. Okay, that is a beautiful place to start. I think a lot of times we feel pressured. And I know specifically, that's why sometimes I even hesitate to share that I do 40 to 60 minutes of breath work a day, because people are like, oh my God, what? I got to do that? Like, comparison is a hoe, man. It really is. It takes us out of the present so fast. I didn't start at an hour, and I didn't start it every single day. Well, actually, that's not true. The day I learned breath work. So let me walk you back to like when I first learned breath work and how I got this like committed to this relationship with the breath. And maybe that might help you with your journey a little bit. I don't know. I'm just sharing. That's all I'm ever doing. So February 2019, I fly to Arizona. My brother is a part of a retreat to teach breath work. It's a very casual retreat. It's at somebody's house. So there's like a very intimate group. I mean, I think there's like 10 to 12 people. I'm there for the weekend. I took off from work, so I'm there for the weekend. And my brother at this point, those of you who are familiar, was like very heavy into breatharianism and liquidarian, and just breath work in general was something I think that was when he really started to get committed himself. And I'm not gonna lie, my brother is a big influence on my life. I think like any younger sibling, that just tends to happen. But like literally, I remember seeing him, and I don't think I had seen him in a long time. Like we see each other maybe like 3 times a year sometimes, twice a year sometimes. It doesn't feel like it because we talk like every day. But either way, like his face structurally looked different. He looked so much younger. His body was so less inflamed. My brother, for the record, used to play football and eat cheesesteaks and do all the things. He was extreme the other way. Now he's extreme holistic. But so I knew that version of him, right? And then I saw him there and I was like, yo, your literal structure of your face is different. Your cheekbones are sitting different. Your eyes look different. Your mouth looks, everything about his face looked different. He literally looked 5 years younger, and he's not old. So I was just like, okay. Granted, fasting was a big part of that, but it did also stem from breath work. You can definitely see people doing fasts that don't look healthy. There's a healthy way to do fasts and a not healthy way. And breath work is a big part of the healthy way. But anyway, so for that weekend, I did the breath work session that he led there. Don't know if I did it right. Didn't really feel anything. Couldn't believe that we had to sit there for 40 minutes and breathe. I was like, what? I don't feel like doing that. I felt a little bit sensations, but nothing really too like, whoa. But every day we did breath work. So it was just a part of the routine, right? So I got used to what it felt like. Even on those days where I didn't feel like doing it, we still did it. And it's just kind of like going to the gym, but for the internal organs, which really need the workout. Can y'all hear this dog? So, even on those days you don't feel like working out and you do it anyway, and you're like, man, I'm so glad I did that. That started to happen. And some days we do it 2 days, and I was fasting effortlessly. This was the first time I was ever able to just fast and I wasn't even thinking about food. There was no desire in my body to eat because we were just so focused on breathing and just like being and existing, and like no desires of consumption lived within that space at all. So my introduction to breathwork came with so many revelations. It was just like, what? We have everything we need within. All this external shit is just stimulation and sedation. That's all it is. What? Okay. Wow. So leaving that trip and coming back to the work week, I was like, that was one of those moments, in your spiritual awakening. And I had had a few by that point, but that was one of the last big ones I've had in a while, where I was like, this is not the life that I was born to live. This isn't it. This working for somebody else and doing this day to day and really just living in this shallow breath and getting caught up in like these shallow ideas and thoughts. This isn't it. This isn't what I want. And so I made it a point to, the way people took cigarette breaks, I took breath breaks as much as I could anyway, without getting in trouble. So I would step outside 2 minutes, set a timer, breathe. I would go to the bathroom, breathe. During my break on lunch, breathe. And when I come home, I made it a point to breathe. On my drive to work, which I will not recommend, honestly, I used to try to do my breathwork session while driving. Not the best idea, but I was so dedicated because I saw the night and day change in myself. It was like, whoa, you don't truly know where you're living from until you know where you're breathing from. You know what I'm saying? So like when I saw that shift and started to really be conscious of like, whoa, this is where I've been living from this whole time. I have the power to change that just by changing my breath, because breath is life and the way you're breathing is the way you're living. It was just like oh yeah, absolutely not. We're not doing that. We're doing this. And so it really, I won't lie, that first maybe 3 months, I was a little obsessive. I was a little crazy. I was like, anything that takes away from the breath is not it. So that's where like the fasting began and like the detoxing began. And I still believe that like anything that's dehydrating you is ultimately taking you away from the breath, which is ultimately taking you away from life. It's like really simple principles.